Chapter 2 Eucharistic Grace. Every human being is called to sanctity by the grace which he receives at his baptism. It is the common path in the diversity of tasks and of services in the Church. There are, on the other hand, special grace which are a call to a life of following Christ. For example, the apostles who received a call, "Follow me." Others are called to the perfection of love, but by different paths. Father Amod adds that everyone receives an attraction, a predominant grace, which he calls sovereign, which colors and unifies the spiritual life of everyone. One is drawn by the passion of the Lord, another by his poverty, etc. There are so many special graces that highlight the diversity of spiritualities in the Church, whether in the ordinary state or in the consecrated life. The most common, the greatest of all, is Eucharistic grace, which unifies all around the Eucharistic mystery, which becomes the source and summit of all activity and which spreads from there like a grace of occasion, either in the world or in the branches, the congregations founded by the Father Amod. Well, in the supernatural order, there are also sovereign graces, accessory graces, and complementary graces. Sovereign grace. The sovereign graces are enough for each person to reach perfection. Through them, all the others receive their life and movement. They are the zeal of life, the summary of all our actions and of all our merits. The sovereign grace of a soul has two effects. First, it determines the way of life for this soul. Then it leads it to a special vocation. This grace of graces will form the character of its piety, of its virtue, and of the life of the person who has it. It will be the inspiration of all its actions to such an extent that it will do everything, it will color everything with this unique attitude. For example, this soul has a sovereign grace of the passion. Therefore, the passion will be its dominant thought. Everything will be the passion for it, its virtues, its love, and its life. Another might have the sovereign grace for penance. This grace of attraction will form its holiness. Penance will influence everything that will be its life, and all its virtues will converge there. But, my brothers, why does God give these graces of character, of attraction? Why? He does it for a divine reason. You know very well that the human mind is too limited to accept all the virtues. It cannot see them all at a single glance. Its vision would be too strained. It would lose its simplicity and it would suffer. Its movement would not be unique and central. There would be rays, but the rays would never converge to the same center. In order for God to bring to perfection this particular character, which its accessory graces, He gives a dominant grace, and this grace simplifies its life and actions, and this even shortens the road that leads to happiness. This is why God gives a sovereign grace of fulfillment on which perfection depends. Each person must recognize his own. This is our interior work. Eucharistic grace. My brothers, the greatest grace of all is the Eucharistic grace. I am not saying this because God has called us here, no. The truth is that the greatest of all graces is the grace of attraction to the most blessed sacrament. It is more than the passion or even heaven. And why? Because its object is more perfect. Yes, Jesus is closer to us by this grace than by those of the other mysteries. The union is more intimate, its flame surrounds us on every side. It remains for us to cooperate and to unite our little flame to this furnace so that they can burn from each other. The grace of vocation to the Blessed Sacrament is the grace of graces. It gives the characteristics of a more perfect life. But notice that it not only traces an easier way to the other mysteries, but it also the glorification of all the other virtues, of all the other perfections. It leaves us a memorial, Psalm 110:4, etc. It is the summary, then it includes them all. My very dear brothers, this Eucharistic grace is very common. Why? It is even more common in the area of piety than the others, and a soul that is called to perfection will receive it more likely by a Eucharistic grace than by all the others. What is the reason for this? Because this grace is easier. Few souls arrive at perfection with the sovereign grace linked to a mystery, even the passion. Why is that? I don't know, but I can see that we can find 10 graces of a Eucharistic vocation compared to one grace of vocation to the Passion. However, I can try to give a reason. Those attractions are for a past mystery. In order for it to excite in us inspiration to move us to action, it must revive greater faith through a greater love. These attractions, separated from communion, can be immolating and crucifying. The grace of attraction to the Eucharist, on the contrary, is a grace of gentleness, of expansion of our love in Jesus Christ. And it is easier to broaden ourselves than to crucify ourselves. From the Eucharist, you will go to Calvary, to Nazareth, and to Bethlehem. But these mysteries separated from communion are without life. The education of Jesus Christ. But you might ask, how can this very powerful call draw us entirely? Oh, here I refer you to your own interior life. It works like education. When Jesus Christ desires to attract a soul to the sovereign grace of the Eucharist, he prepares it first through the grace of feeling that perhaps in principle will not be appreciated the day of our first communion. The feeling of happiness of the presence of Jesus was for us a small attraction unknown to us. It developed like a seed underground, and later, as it grew, by the care we gave it, it became a need, an aptitude, a spirit, and an instinct. Everything then began to attract us to the Blessed Sacrament. If that were missing in our soul, everything was missing at the same time. A soul possessed by this grace makes its virtue and piety pass towards the most blessed sacrament. It feels the need for mass and communication to enter a church, to see the tabernacle. Something pushes us. What is it then? It's the sovereign grace that has been forming its education, that has become the mother of all its other graces and the moving power of all its other actions. But this soul might say, I feel full of devotion for the Blessed Sacrament. I feel good in His presence. I really believe this came from your education. This sovereign grace becomes our spirit. Things become easier, more cordial in their execution. It becomes an instinct for us, a law of our heart that makes us act under its influence without reflecting spontaneously. And certainly, the spirit of the family is not reasoned out, it's an infusion awareness. Likewise, for the Eucharistic grace, when it is given to us as the sovereign and dominant grace. Now, when we have the happiness of having such a grace, we must believe in our piety and in our virtues. Contemplation and prayer must stir in us this moving force. Without that, we will achieve nothing. We must always nourish this grace of life by reading and prayer. For example, what do we do to obtain a large amount of steam? We light a strong fire, we feed it more and more, always with inflammable material. Likewise, if you want to obtain the perfection of your virtue, you must increase your strength, keeping in view your sovereign grace. That's where the temptation lies, to make us forget our Mother Grace for mere nothing. I am saying here something that I don't believe can be contradicted. A soul that receives communion several times a week has a Eucharistic grace. It must turn towards it all its other devotions as to their mother and as to their queen. When the king is on his throne, all the officers remain on guard to do him honor. This is where, my brothers, that Eucharistic souls recognize each other everywhere. The Blessed Sacrament loves them with the same reflection. Thursday, May 11th, 1865, public preaching in the Chapel of the Religious in Paris. 12.